The airlock hissed and Commander Lyle Harper stumbled through, dragging his wounded leg behind him. Blood smeared across the polished floor of the Zenthari command ship. The alien guards had their plasma rifles aimed at his chest before he took his second breath. "Where is she?" Lyle gasped. The nearest Zenthari, its crystalline exoskeleton reflecting the corridor lights and fractured rainbows, clicked its mandibles in what might have been contempt. It gestured with one of its 4 arms toward the sealed chamber at the end of the hall. Lyle didn't wait for permission. He lurched forward, and the guards let him pass. They always did. Humanity had lost the war 3 months ago. Earth was glassed. The colonies were ash. What remained of the human fleet drifted as debris between dead worlds. One limping soldier posed no threat. The chamber doors parted. Inside, the Zenthari Queen hung suspended in a web of medical filaments, each one pulsing with diagnostic light. Her massive form twitched occasionally, muscles spasming beneath armor plating that had seen 1,000 years of rule. Dozens of Zenthari physicians surrounded her, their instruments humming uselessly. Lyle recognized the lead physician from the battlefield negotiations, the one who had delivered Earth's surrender terms. "She's dying," the physician said without turning. Its translator rendered the words flat and emotionless. "I know," Lyle said. "That's why I'm here. You are infantry. Broken infantry from a broken species. Poor evidence. I'm also a janitor." The physician's antennae twitched. Confusion rippled through the medical team. "Before the war," Lyle continued, forcing himself to stand straighter despite the agony in his leg, "I cleaned the Titan Station recycling systems. 40,000 people living in a closed loop. One clog, one malfunction, everyone dies." He moved closer to the Queen's suspended form. "Your Majesty has been failing for how long?" 217 years, the physician admitted. "And you've tried everything in your medical archives. Everything." Lyle pulled a small toolkit from his belt. The guards tensed, but the physician raised a hand to stop them. "Your species thinks like engineers," Lyle said. "Perfect designs, optimal solutions. You've forgotten how to think like janitors. Explain. Systems don't fail because they're badly designed. They fail because they're used. They accumulate damage. They get clogged with the unexpected." He opened his toolkit. "Show me the blockage." The physician hesitated, then projected a holographic image of the Queen's primary neural pathway. A crystalline structure unlike anything in human anatomy, but Lyle saw it immediately. The same problem he'd fixed 10,000 times on Titan Station. Biological buildup. Calcification. The simplest problem with the most overlooked solution. "I can fix this," Lyle said, "but I need your word. Humanity gets to rebuild. No more orbital bombardments. No more hunting us down." The physician looked at the dying Queen, then at the human with his battered toolkit. "Proceed." Asterisk, the human janitor fixed the alien queens. Lyle's hands moved with practiced efficiency despite the tremor of pain running through his body. The Zenthari physicians crowded closer, their crystalline bodies refracting the surgical lights into dancing patterns across the chamber walls. "Step back," Lyle ordered. "I need room to work." The lead physician translated, and the crowd reluctantly withdrew. Lyle pressed his fingers against the holographic display, rotating the image of the Queen's neural pathway. The calcification wrapped around the central conduit like mineral deposits in an old water pipe. Centuries of metabolic waste, perfectly crystallized, choking the flow of neural signals that kept the Queen's vast consciousness functioning. "Your surgical drones are too precise," Lyle muttered, pulling a seemingly crude instrument from his toolkit. It looked like nothing more than a modified sonic probe, something a maintenance worker might use to clear debris from a ventilation shaft. "You've been trying to dissolve this without damaging the surrounding tissue. Obviously," the physician said. "The Queen's neural structure is irreplaceable." Wrong approach. Lyle positioned himself beside the Queen's suspended head, studying the transparent section of her exoskeleton where the surgeons had already opened access ports. "You don't dissolve a clog. You break it loose and flush it out." He activated the sonic probe. The tool hummed at a frequency that made the Zenthari physicians step back further, their antennae flattening against their heads in discomfort. "That frequency will shatter the neural pathway," one of them protested. "It'll shatter the blockage first," Lyle corrected. "Watch." He inserted the probe through the access port with steady hands. On the holographic display, the sonic waves rippled through the Queen's neural tissue, passing harmlessly through the organic material, but resonating violently against the crystallized buildup. Hairline fractures appeared in the calcification. "The fragments?" the physician said urgently. "They'll cause embolic damage throughout her system. Not if you flush them." Lyle withdrew the probe and grabbed a second tool. This one the Zenthari recognized as a standard medical irrigator, though modified with human components. "Your species filters everything through your exoskeletons. You've got a natural drainage system built into your biology. You just need to trigger it." He activated the irrigator, sending a carefully calibrated pulse of fluid through the Queen's neural pathway. The fractured calcification broke apart completely, and the Zenthari medical team watched in stunned silence as the fragments flushed out through the Queen's natural filtration channels, exactly as Lyle had predicted. The holographic display showed the neural pathway clearing in real time. Signals that had been blocked for 2 centuries began flowing again. The Queen's eyes opened, all 16 of them. Her massive form shifted in the medical web, and every Zenthari in the chamber dropped to their knees in instinctive submission. Lyle remained standing, tools still in hand, meeting the ancient monarch's gaze. The Queen's voice filled the chamber without her moving her mandibles, a direct neural projection that bypassed language entirely, translating meaning straight into Lyle's consciousness. "You are the human soldier who surrendered Earth. Yes, Your Majesty, you fixed what my physicians could not. Yes, Your Majesty. Why?" Lyle's grip tightened on his tools. His wounded leg throbbed. Behind the Queen's throne, viewports showed the debris field that had once been Earth's defense fleet, billions dead. His homeworld reduced to radioactive glass. "Because fixing things is what humans do," he said quietly. "We're good at it. We've had to be. Our planets try to kill us. Our machines break down. Our bodies fail. So we learn to patch, repair, and jury-rig solutions from whatever we have on hand." He gestured at his crude toolkit. "Your species builds things that last millennia. Ours break every Tuesday. That's why we got good at maintenance." The Queen's neural presence intensified, probing at his thoughts. Lyle didn't resist. Let her see the truth. Let her understand what humanity had been reduced to. "The physician promised you terms," the Queen said finally. "Humanity gets to rebuild. That was the deal." Insufficient. The Queen's massive form rose from the medical web, filaments detaching with soft clicks. She stood for the first time in decades, her full height dominating the chamber. "You will rebuild. But not alone. The Zenthari Empire has conquered 47 species across 2 galaxies. Our technology is supreme. Our military is unmatched. Our culture is ancient beyond your comprehension." She stepped toward Lyle, and he forced himself not to retreat. "Yet we were dying," the Queen continued. "Our ships break down more frequently every decade. Our stations require constant repairs. Our manufacturing facilities produce more defects each year. We built an empire on perfection, but perfection cannot maintain itself." Lyle began to understand where this was going. "Humanity will rebuild," the Queen declared, "and you will teach the Zenthari how to fix what we have broken." The Zenthari homeworld of Crystalla hung in the viewport like a massive jewel, its crystalline cities reflecting starlight across continents of polished stone. Lyle pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the transport ship, watching the planet grow larger as they descended. 3 weeks had passed since he'd cleared the Queen's neural pathway. 3 weeks of intensive debriefing, medical treatment for his leg, and increasingly bizarre negotiations between the remnants of human leadership and the Zenthari High Council. "We're approaching the primary maintenance facility," announced Captain Nina Frost, the only other human aboard the Zenthari vessel. She'd been pulled from a refugee station orbiting what used to be Mars. Before the war, she'd managed environmental systems for the entire Jovian mining consortium. "How bad is it?" Lyle asked. Nina pulled up a data tablet, scrolling through reports that had been translated from Zenthari technical logs. Her expression darkened with each page. Catastrophic doesn't cover it. Their primary power distribution network has a failure rate that increases 8% annually. Life support systems on their outer colonies are running at 60% efficiency. Their flagship dreadnought, the Eternal Ascendant, hasn't been able to achieve faster than light travel in 6 months. They conquered half the galaxy with broken ships? Their weapons still work fine. Their shields hold, but everything else? Nina shook her head. They're coasting on infrastructure built 1,000 years ago, and it's all falling apart simultaneously. The transport settled onto a landing pad the size of a small city. Lyle and Nina were escorted by a full honor guard of Zenthari warriors, their crystalline armor gleaming in the artificial sunlight of the underground facility. The lead physician who had witnessed the Queen's recovery walked beside them. "We call this the Eternum Forge," the physician explained. Its name, Lyle had learned, was Sekthar. It manufactures the quantum cores that power our vessels. Production has declined 43% in the last century. They entered through doors that opened into a space so vast Lyle couldn't see the far walls. Manufacturing equipment stretched in every direction, most of it silent and dark. The few active production lines moved with stuttering, irregular rhythms. Nina stopped walking, staring at the equipment with undisguised horror. "When was the last time you performed preventive maintenance?" Sekthar's antennae twitched in confusion. "Preventive maintenance? Routine checks, scheduled replacements, cleaning protocols. Our equipment was designed to operate for 10,000 years without intervention." "Designed to, sure?" Lyle said, approaching the nearest production line. He ran his hand along a crystalline conduit, and his fingers came away coated in a fine residue. "But nothing operates in a vacuum. Cosmic radiation degrades materials. Thermal cycling causes stress fractures. Molecular level contamination accumulates." He showed Sekthar his contaminated hand. "You've got particulate buildup throughout the entire system? Impossible. The facility is environmentally sealed. Building." Nina had climbed onto a maintenance platform, examining a massive reactor assembly. "Sealed to what specification?" "Because I'm reading atmospheric particle counts that would shut down a human factory in minutes." She pulled out a handheld scanner. "You've got microfractures in 70% of your primary conduits. Your filtration systems are clogged. Your coolant lines are running restricted flow." She looked down at the gathered Zenthari. "This entire facility should have been shut down for deep maintenance decades ago." "Shutting down the Eternum Forge would cripple the Empire's shipbuilding capacity," Sekthar protested. "It's already crippled," Lyle said bluntly. "You're just limping along pretending everything's fine while your production numbers crash." He walked deeper into the facility, studying the silent equipment. "How many facilities like this do you have?" 47 across the Empire. One for each conquered species territory. And they're all failing at the same rate? Approximately. Lyle exchanged a look with Nina. She nodded slowly, understanding what he was thinking. "Your empire wasn't built to last," Lyle said, turning to face Sekthar. "It was built to dominate. You optimized every system for maximum performance, pushed everything to theoretical limits, then assumed it would run forever without anyone getting their hands dirty with actual maintenance work. Our designs were perfect," Sekthar insisted. "Perfect for conquering," Nina corrected. "Terrible for sustaining. Human equipment breaks down every Tuesday, like you said. So we built redundancy. We scheduled maintenance. We trained millions of people whose entire job was keeping things running." She gestured at the failing facility. "You built an empire on the backs of species you considered inferior, then never learned the skills they could have taught you. Such as? How to fix your own damn equipment," Lyle said. "How to get your hands dirty. How to troubleshoot when the perfect design meets imperfect reality." He pulled out his toolkit again. "The Queen wants us to teach you, so let's start here. Shut down production line 7. That will reduce output by... shut it down. Or watch it fail catastrophically in the next 6 months. Your choice." Sekthar gave the order. The production line powered down with a descending whine that sounded like a dying engine. Warning lights flickered across control panels that hadn't shown errors in centuries. "Now," Lyle said, approaching the silent machinery, "let me show you what actual maintenance looks like." The human janitor fixed the alien queen, 6 months transformed the Zenthari Empire, and weighs 1,000 years of conquest. Never had. Lyle stood in the observation deck of the newly christened Human Technical Academy, watching thousands of Zenthari engineers practice basic maintenance procedures on decommissioned equipment. They moved with awkward precision, their rigid approach to perfection clashing with the improvisational reality of repair work. Section 12 just reported their first successful independent turbine rebuild, Nina announced, entering the observation deck with a data tablet. Only took them 4 tries and minimal supervision. Progress, Lyle muttered. His leg had healed well, though he still favored it when tired. How's the Eternal Ascendant? Back to full, faster-than-light capability as of this morning. Captain Bradley and his team finished the engine overhaul ahead of schedule. Nina pulled up a star map showing the Empire's territory. Green indicators were slowly replacing red across dozens of systems. We've got 200 human maintenance crews deployed across the core worlds now. Every major facility has at least one troubleshooting specialist. 200 crews for an empire of trillions. It's a start. Nina zoomed in on Earth's system. The planet itself remained a radioactive wasteland, but the orbital stations were lighting up with activity. Reconstruction authorization came through. The Queen approved full resource allocation for rebuilding the solar colonies. Lyle watched the green indicators multiply around his dead homeworld, humanity clawing its way back from extinction, one repaired station at a time. The door opened again. Sekthar entered, moving with unusual urgency. Commander Harper, we have a situation. The Outer Rim territory of Vexnor has gone silent. All communications ceased 40 minutes ago. Military attack? Lyle asked immediately. Unknown. The system defense grid shows no hostile contacts, but the entire industrial sector has experienced simultaneous cascading failures. Sekthar's antennae drooped. We believe the main reactor complex has suffered critical malfunction. How critical? Vexnor colony houses 8 billion Zenthari. If the reactors fail completely, the planet becomes uninhabitable within 72 hours. Nina was already pulling up system specifications. Vexnor was one of your earliest conquests. The infrastructure there is over 900 years old. Yes. We have been unable to send repair teams. The facility is too unstable. Lyle understood immediately. The Zenthari physicians had been too afraid to risk unconventional solutions with their queen. Now their engineers face the same paralysis. But you'll send humans. You understand systems we do not. You see solutions our rigid thinking cannot conceive. Sekthar met his gaze directly. 8 billion lives, Commander, we are asking. Demanding would be more honest, Leo said, but without heat. He turned to Nina. Get me Bradley and his best engineers. We'll need fast transport. Already on it. 4 hours later, Lyle was strapped into an emergency response ship with a hand-picked team of 12 humans. Captain Danny Bradley sat in the pilot seat, running pre-flight faster than any Zenthari could manage. The rest of the crew was a mixture of power systems specialists, structural engineers, and general troubleshooters who'd survived the war by being too useful to die. Vexnor in 90 minutes, Bradley announced as they launched. I'm reading multiple reactor warnings already. Whatever happened, it happened fast. Specialist Claire Montgomery pulled up thermal imaging of the colony. Main reactor cluster is running 40% over normal temperature. Coolant systems are offline. Backup generators failing sequentially. She looked up from her display. This isn't random equipment failure. This is synchronized collapse. Sabotage? Asked Kent Ramirez, the team's structural specialist. Or cumulative neglect reaching critical mass all at once, Lyle said. 900 years of deferred maintenance doesn't ask permission before it kills you. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Vexnor's orbit. The planet below looked normal from space, but proximity alerts screamed warnings about atmospheric contamination and radiation spikes. We've got maybe 48 hours before the main reactors breach, Bradley said, studying the readouts. After that, the whole planet cooks. They landed near the primary reactor complex, under emergency protocols. The facility was evacuated. Its massive corridors empty except for emergency lighting and the distant groan of failing equipment. Lyle led his team through the entrance, following thermal maps toward the core systems. The scale was staggering. The reactor chamber stretched the size of a mountain, with dozens of fusion cores arranged in a pattern that made human engineering look like children's toys. But the elegance of the design couldn't hide the crisis. Coolant pipes had ruptured. Control systems flickered erratically. Heat shimmer distorted the air. The Zenthari tried to shut it down remotely, Claire reported, examining a control terminal. Safeties didn't engage. Manual overrides aren't responding. Because the manual systems haven't been tested in centuries, Nina said, tracing coolant lines with her scanner. The physical mechanisms have seized. We're not dealing with a computer problem. We're dealing with 900 years of rust. Kent was already climbing a maintenance ladder toward the upper reactor tier. I can see the primary coolant valve from here. It's locked in the open position. That's why the system's overheating. Can you close it? Lyle called up. Not manually. The valve assembly weighs about 40 tons and requires hydraulic assistance. Kent descended quickly. We need to restore power to the backup systems. Backup generators are offline, Bradley reminded them. Lyle walked the perimeter of the reactor chamber, his mind working through the problem the way he'd approached 10,000 smaller crises on Titan Station. The Zenthari had built a perfect system with perfect redundancies, all of which assumed the systems would never need human intervention. They'd designed out the possibility of repair. We can't fix this, he said finally. His team turned to stare at him. We don't have the equipment, the time, or the expertise to restore these systems properly, Lyle continued. We need to think like janitors, not engineers. Meaning? Nina asked. Meaning we don't fix it. We bypass it completely and build something new. Asterix, the human janitor, fixed the alien queens. Lyle pulled up the reactor schematics on his portable display and rotated the three-dimensional model, ignoring the elegant Zenthari design to focus on the raw physics underneath. 8 billion people had 48 hours to live. Perfect solutions would take months. Imperfect ones might take minutes. The reactors themselves are stable, he said, thinking aloud. The problem is heat distribution. Coolant can't flow, so thermal energy builds until containment fails and we get a runaway meltdown. Correct, Claire confirmed. But without the primary coolant system, we make our own. Lyle pointed at the reactor chamber's exterior wall. What's on the other side of this facility? Bradley checked the colony maps. Industrial water processing. Handles waste reclamation for the entire eastern continent. Capacity? Millions of gallons per hour. Lyle smiled grimly. We're gonna flood the reactor chamber. The team stared at him in silence. That's insane, Kent finally said. The chamber isn't designed to hold water. The electrical systems will short out. The structural integrity will hold long enough, Lyle interrupted. The Zenthari overbuild everything. This chamber could probably survive direct orbital bombardment. It'll survive being turned into a swimming pool. He started marking points on the holographic display. We breach the wall. Here, here, and here. Let gravity do the work. The water floods in, absorbs the thermal energy, and buys us time to implement a permanent solution. The reactors will be completely submerged, Nina protested. We'll never be able to access them for repairs. We'll drain it after the crisis passes. Right now, I'm not trying to repair anything. I'm trying to prevent 8 billion deaths with the materials we have available in the next 6 hours. Bradley was already calculating. We'd need shaped charges to breach the walls. Military-grade equipment we don't have. We have a ship with mining lasers for salvage operations, Claire countered. We could cut through the exterior walls, create breaches large enough for water flow. The processing facility's pumps will need to be redirected, Nina added, warming to the idea despite its absurdity. We'll have to override their safety protocols to push that much water through residential-grade pipes. Kent pulled up structural models. If we position the breaches correctly, the water pressure will distribute evenly. The chamber will fill from bottom to top, gradually submerging the reactors. Temperature should drop fast enough to prevent containment failure. Lyle watched his team shift from doubt to problem solving. This was what humans did best. Not building perfect systems, but finding creative solutions when perfect systems failed. We've got 6 hours, he said. Let's move. They split into 3 teams. Bradley took the ship back into orbit to position the mining lasers for precision cutting. Nina and two specialists ran toward the water processing facility to prepare the pumps. Kent, Claire, and the remaining engineers began setting up measurement equipment to monitor the flooding process. Lyle coordinated from the reactor chamber, watching thermal readings creep higher with each passing minute. The cores were approaching critical temperature. If they didn't start cooling within 2 hours, containment would begin degrading, regardless of what they tried afterward. Positioning complete, Bradley reported over the comm. Ready to cut on your mark. Processing facility pumps are redirected, Nina added. We'll have approximately 8 million gallons per hour once the breach is open, enough to fill the chamber in roughly 4 hours. Thermal monitoring systems are active, Claire confirmed. We'll track temperature changes in real time. Lyle took a breath. This violated every principle of proper engineering. The Zenthari would be horrified. But proper engineering had led to 900 years of neglect, culminating in planetary catastrophe. Sometimes you needed improper solutions. Execute, he ordered. Bradley's mining lasers fired from orbit, cutting through the reactor facility's exterior walls with surgical precision. 3 massive breaches opened simultaneously, and water from the processing facility erupted through the openings like industrial waterfalls. The sound was deafening. A roar of liquid crashing into the chamber with the force of a tidal wave. The temperature readings began dropping immediately. "It's working!" Claire shouted over the noise. "Core temperature decreasing point, 3 degrees per minute." Not fast enough yet, but accelerating as water depth increases. Lyle watched the chamber flood, water climbing the massive fusion cores like a rising tide. Steam billowed where superheated metal met cold liquid. Electrical systems sparked and died. The elegant Zenthar architecture disappeared beneath murky industrial runoff. 30 minutes in, Kent reported. Water depth at 12 meters, temperature decline holding steady. We're gonna make it.
But Lyle was watching a different readout.
Structural stress indicators along the chamber walls. The facility was strong, but they were subjecting it to forces it was never designed to handle. Microfractures appeared in the wall supports. Nothing critical yet, but spreading. "The chamber's holding," he said, more to reassure himself than his team. "Barely," Kent replied, seeing the same data. "We've got stress fractures developing in the northwest quadrant. If those walls fail while we're flooding, they won't fail. Zenthari engineering is solid." Quote, "Zenthari engineering assumed proper maintenance. We're betting 8 billion lives that 900 years of neglect didn't weaken critical supports." The water continued rising. 2 hours passed. 3. The cores were fully submerged now. Massive fusion reactors sitting at the bottom of an artificial lake inside a mountain-sized chamber, never meant to hold water. Temperature readings dropped into safe ranges. Crisis averted. Then the northwest wall cracked. Not a catastrophic failure, but a visible fracture running from floor to ceiling, spreading like lightning across crystalline construction material. Water pressure pushed against the weakened structure. Stress indicators spiked into dangerous territory. "We need to stop the flooding," Kent said urgently. "We stop now. The reactors overheat again," Lyle countered. "We need another hour of cooling minimum." "We don't have an hour." "That wall is going to fail." Lyle stared at the crack, his mind racing through options. They couldn't stop flooding without risking meltdown. They couldn't continue flooding without risking structural collapse. The perfect Zenthari facility was too damaged to handle the imperfect human solution, unless they made it less perfect. "Bradley!"